Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Coffee Corner. Today is your episode 122. This is a topic I've been attempting to do, but I always feel like I'm not qualified for it. It's a parenting, and also I know this topic might not apply to all of you guys out there, but I think it's worth listening to it. I hope and I think it might spark some ideas and offer you a different perspective on understanding how to deal with the relationships, any kind of. So here you go. I think one of the most difficult things when it comes to parenting for me is to handle negative emotions or reacting negative emotions. So a lot of things that I've talked about in these videos are just purely from my own experience and feelings, and I realized a lot of struggles come from how or what I was taught or not taught to handle emotions growing up. I hope this can shed a little bit light on you. Here we go. What I said, the most difficult thing about parenting so far, I've only had 2 years of experience, so I can't really say much, but so far everything has been very difficult. And toddlers, if you have toddlers, they are emotionally unstable. It can be this moment they're so happy, and the next second they're going to be super mad, and the next second they're going to be very sad and then start to cry. I never know why they do this. I don't understand. You have food, you have beautiful, comfortable clothing, and you have a warm home, you have a lot of tools. You have me, you have dad, and you got everyone to play with you. Why are you not happy? And that's one thing I don't understand. And when they are sad, I feel sad, and I also feel helpless. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to deal with until one day I was talking to my husband. I said, what should I do? Why is he sad? And my husband just said one thing. Why do you have to do something? He's just sad. He's a little toddler. He wants to be sad and he's sad. And then give him some time to be sad. And I feel that moment, I've never had a moment that I was allowed to be sad, right? Allowed to have my negative emotions, which I just talked about in last episode. We don't give ourselves space and time to be sad, to process our negative feelings and emotions because we were never taught to have that ability. I think thinking about my parents, now I'm a parent, I always think about my parents, how they educated me, how they handled me. One of the things I remembered really clearly was I was not allowed to cry. So when I had tears, especially if I was wronged or my dad was being really mad or strict with me, and I would be crying a lot. I would have been told to not cry because crying will be a sign telling them they are bad parents. But of course, they're not bad parents, so I cannot cry. And they would literally say, why are you crying? Why are you crying? Don't you realize you did something wrong? And for a while, I started to control not to cry when things happen like that. But then they would say that, why are you not crying? Do you feel like you're right about it? Those kind of things that got me really messed up about how I should feel in certain situations about certain things. And for a very long time, I cannot allow myself to have negative feelings because then I feel guilty. I'm a lucky kid. I have a house. I have both of my parents. I have food. I have school. I have education. I have toys. I should be grateful, which I am really grateful. But I don't know why being grateful cannot work with also being sad and upset or mad, those kind of things. I feel like they're not the opposites. They should be roommates, right? So they should all live under the same roof. They might not see each other, but sometimes they might have to say hi. But if they say hi, it should be like friendly. Hi, how are you? Yeah, pretty good. How about you? Not like I hate you. You should never come out kind of thing. But that's how I was taught to deal with those kind of things. And then growing up, I started to realize I should not talk about my negative feelings. And that's when I realized my parents have no ability to deal with my negative feelings and emotions or even my negative stories. So when I shared sad things, sad news, when I shared my failures with them, their first reaction will be asking why. And they will be asking me, why did this happen? What are you going to do? And it's going to be a really disaster, or is that going to become worse? So they added more pressure and stress on me to the point I feel like maybe something wrong with me, and maybe I really made a bad decision. Maybe I shouldn't be sad. Maybe I shouldn't have those negative emotions and feelings that moment. But then I feel like I sometimes just wanted to vent it out how I feel about certain things. I'm not looking for solutions at that moment, but I just wanted to tell you this is how I feel, and those should be legitimate feelings and should not be denied. But now I started to learn to not share so much with my parents, but occasionally I FaceTime with my parents every single morning because they miss my little one and they want to see him, they want to talk about it. And I realized that those, including pictures, videos, and live calls, when they see a little tiny thing that they don't like, they will start to talk about it. They will start to point it out. That doesn't matter if you shared 99% of good news with them, with the 1% of a bad thing. They only focus on the 1% bad thing because they don't know how to deal with it. They start to put all the effort and attention to that 1%, ignoring the rest of the story. So I remember my son was really unhappy one morning for no reason. He wasn't just in the mood. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to eat breakfast. And he also didn't want his car to be on that table. And for no reason, he was not happy. And then my parents panicked. They didn't know what to do. They started to question me why he was not happy. What did I do? And did he not sleep well? Or did he have bad dreams? Or was he uncomfortable? Was he sick? There were so many questions to me about why he's not happy. And I realized that they don't know how to deal with negativity. And I've inherited that from them. I didn't know how to deal with my son's negative feelings and emotions, and I start to feel so stressed to the point that my anxiety comes and goes, and sometimes I even have a panic attack. Not trying to blame my parents for that. What I want to say, so here, let's stop talking about parents or being parents for a moment. What I want to say that I've been talking about how much influence family can bring to you and how much you can do to not get rid of them, but more of moving on and start a new journey. But I want to tell you the reality is that will be a shadow in your life. You cannot completely get rid of it because for certain moments it will come out and say hi to you. And that's the most difficult moments for you because you will also have to manage yourself, handle other people, and also trying to fight against that shadow. And that is extremely difficult for me. For example, so let's say my son, that moment, he was not happy. It took me a while to realize and learn and understand that they're not happy just because they're not happy. That's simple. No reason. They're happy because they're very happy. No reason. That's simple. But for me, I'm thinking about it from my perspective. I have to come up with the reasons for that unhappiness. And then I checked off all the reasons and I realized that there's no reason for him to be unhappy. Then I freaked out and I start to get mad at them. And that's when I realized or remembered how my parents dealt with me when I had those kind of moments is they would think I'm very reasonable and not being a good kid. Have you ever been told that you're not a good kid at the moment, but you were just simply having your own moments in that sad story? I have to fight really hard to tell myself that you need to be patient with your toddler, with your son, because he does not know anything. He's not even as mature as Bob. Let's put it that way. It took me a while to learn that patience is a key to handle situations like that. You need to sit back. You need to stand back, sit back, whatever you want. You can even lay back to just watch and let them. I need to let him be unhappy like that. I need to let him scream around in the house. I need to let him whine about whatever. He just need to let it out for a couple minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, from time to time, on and off, and he will eventually grow out of it. He will eventually get rid of it, and then he will be a happy kid again. But again, being a happy kid is not a permanent result. It comes and goes. Everything is unstable. Everything changes, especially your feelings and emotions. I have to learn that. I have to tell myself. But then sometimes when I have moments, I don't have patience and I just don't have the energy to deal with a lot of things at the same time. I start to blame my parents. Why didn't you have the ability to handle those kind of things so I could have learned from you so my life could have been easier right now? So that's when we are using family origin as excuse because life is so hard. You got no one to blame but your parents because you don't want to do the work. So that's parenting. Another idea inspired by this topic is handling relationship. Could be romantic relationship. My husband and I never talked about this. My husband is actually my very first relationship, official relationship. I've never got into a relationship very deeply. I feel like I did not know how to keep a relationship. I did not know how to get along with other people romantically. I feel like I could not rely on them and I also don't know how to deal with their stories. Of course, when you get more intimate, you want to share a lot of stories, good or bad. Good stories, you're happy for them, and bad stories, and then you right away start to feel like I need to keep a distance from this person because I don't know how to do. Like, what do you want me to say? Do you want me to say, oh, I feel bad for you? Or do you want me to give you a hug? But a hug doesn't solve any problems, so why are you doing that to me? Again, that is another sign of me failing to deal with the negative emotions and feelings. And especially, and I still have this problem now too, is sometimes when I see my husband being upset about certain things, my first reaction, that is my mechanism to protect myself, is to be quiet. So I shut down. I also shut off myself. I will keep myself in a corner, not physically in a corner, but I will keep my soul, my mind, everything in a corner and just try to be invisible. I think that happens. It doesn't happen right now just because I'm far away, but it used to happen a lot when my parents had fights. And they had a lot, of course, anger and frustration and upset, those kind of things, and some tears, of course. But I didn't know what to do with them. They never apologized to each other and they never gave hug to each other or they never comfort each other. So when they had a fight, and then gradually you will live out of that and then carry on those kind of things. So for me, I feel if I didn't want to be involved in that situation, I better keep myself away from it. And that's how I handle those kind of situations. But as a couple, or if you are in a romantic relationship, conflicts, arguments, those kind of things are very common. It's a sign of actually healthy relationship. People will have frictions. Like, it doesn't matter how happy you are, how good the relationship is. Some point there's something that will rub you in a wrong way, but you will have to have ability to express yourself, or you will have to have ability to accept, acknowledge, and embrace your partner's negative part as well. But I don't have that. And then I think that's why in the past few years or in the past decade, I never really got involved in any situation because I was so scared to deal with those kind of shit. Pardon my language. Ever think about getting in a relationship, doesn't matter if you want to have a boyfriend, girlfriend, you want to get married, you want to have a kid, you really have to think about not only financially can you afford it, but also emotionally can you afford it. I think the struggle comes from different ways. If you have money, you will live a better life, which means a lot of things won't be too much of a trouble for you. But also, I think having money is not the only reason that you can have a relationship. It's also whether your partner or yourself is emotionally mature. Can you take responsibilities for yourself and other people? By that, can you allow yourself to have negative feelings and telling yourself negative feelings are okay? They're not bad. They're negative because people don't usually have them. And when people have them, they feel different. But also, when your partner has negative feelings and emotions, when they come to you to vent about their thoughts, are you able to handle them? And how are you going to handle them? That is also a very big question. I think in a romantic relationship, it's more of one way than the other. So women tend to vent out a lot, but the guys tend to keep their secrets inside of themselves. I think both of them should work a little bit harder to open up. So let's say, as a woman, I do have a lot of feelings, but I keep them to myself because I feel like those are wrong feelings, so I should not talk about them. But I start to learn that I want to talk about those and share that with my husband. What's the cause for the feeling and why I felt this way, and how am I going to feel better and how long would that take? I want to be a little bit more transparent to my husband so he understands my timeline of dealing with my own shit. And also, I'm telling him to open up. And he sometimes feels really stressed, but he kept that to himself. But he started to act out, which is really bad. And he didn't realize that. He started to act out by being very impatient to a lot of things. So when he walks Bob, he will be like, hurry up. And when he plays with our son, he will be like, why do you do this? Let me do that for you. Instead of just wait, observe, and let him do things. And we had a few talks about it, and we start to realize that if as a guy there's no shame to share your frustration and stress, it doesn't show or it doesn't even mean you are weak. It just shows everybody has a vulnerable spot, soft spot. You sometimes have to open up and show people that I'm vulnerable. I'm also a human being. I have natural feelings and thoughts and emotions, and that is this moment. I don't know how to deal with it. I maybe talk to you about it and maybe we can come up with some solutions, maybe not. So those are the things I think. To have a healthy relationship, you really have to open up about your feelings and emotions, and you also should have ability to handle them. And that's my opinion. It doesn't mean that you have to be mature to have a relationship. I'm just saying that if you ever wonder what a healthy relationship should look like or how a healthy relationship functions, and I think this is how it functions, you have to be emotionally mature, and then you have to be able to deal with both of emotions. And then thinking about having kids, it took me a few years to think clearly if I ever wanted a kid or not. And again, it took me a very long time to figure out if I wanted to get married or not. And then it really scared my parents. And my mom had a moment that if you don't get married, you're no longer my daughter. And then I got married and they said, are you going to have a kid? And then one point I said, I don't want to have a kid. And then she basically said, so what's the point of getting married? Well, so I'm getting married because I love him. Not because I want a kid. If I want a kid, I would just go to a hospital and find a donor. But I didn't say that anyway. So if you ever want to become a mom or a dad or a parent, you have to think about how much you can handle, because having a kid is so difficult. It's not just you are pregnant, you give birth, now you have a baby, you feed him, her, you give him clothes, you give him education, you buy toys. It's a lot of emotion involved, a lot of care and effort and the time and the patience involved in taking care of a child. You have to understand that a lot of things you can't control. You also have to understand that baby has no ability at all to manage themselves. You have to manage everything, including yourself. And when you manage them physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially, you have to be very stable and smart and responsible. Not saying that you're not going to get break to allow yourself to freak out. You can. You just cannot freak out on your child, on your kids, because I am the victim of that. When my parents could not handle their own shit, they dump everything on me. Have you ever had experience that your parents took their anger out onto you? They're not mad at you. It's not like you did something wrong. They couldn't get things they want, or things didn't go their way. And then they turned and they happened to see you, and then you happen to drink water with a slurping sound, and then they start to point it at you and then say, how dare you do that? How dare you making sound? And those kind of things. That's a sign of them being immature emotionally, because they did not know how to handle their emotions. So they decide to dump those on you. So I don't care what you want to do. And then now you inherited that and you start to do that to your kids. And that's when you can really learn and bring awareness to yourself. Is you want to tell yourself and remind yourself, if that ever happens, you're going to call, I need to stop right this moment. I need to tell my children that at this moment, I'm really tired. I have no patience. I can't deal with that. I will come back. Okay. You can go freak out. You can go crazy, but I'm always here and ready for a hug. I think that has changed me quite a lot. I am very emotional, but now with him, even my husband says, well, you are being a great mother. That I sometimes can't imagine how you stay calm in that situation. Because inside of myself, telling myself that he is a little kid. He doesn't know anything, but I'm an adult. I have a strong power. I have a strong ability to manage at that moment. And after that, I can get mad at myself. I can write it out on a journal. I can even talk about it in a video. But I cannot dump my own anger because I'm frustrated that I'm not able to handle things onto my child, because that's not fair for them. And I don't want them to learn that. So that's how I feel about this parenting. I think another very big challenge for me is the constant worry about me doing something wrong and damage him, and he's not going to grow up healthily. And that's one thing I think this channel has become a journal for me to learn and discover my own emotions and behaviors, and self-reflect on my parenting, my teaching, or just as a person or as a partner. I feel I needed to talk and map out my motives, my behavior, some of my decisions, some of my thoughts, and some of my emotions at a certain moments. Are they connected? How they're connected? Is there a reason behind it? Is that because of my family, or because it's just simply me, or there are external factors I didn't really think about, those kind of things. And I even can tell myself now that before I get home, if I had a really bad day at school because of my students, because of my job or anything, or overloaded work, and I would remind myself before I even step in the house, I would say, today I had a really terrible day at work. And I'm really not happy what I did at work. So that might affect the level of my tolerance. So my tolerance is very low today. And so even a little tiny thing can trigger my upset, my anger. So I have to be careful. If I have the moment I'm going to let those things out, I need to tell myself that just because I'm so stressed today, I'm so tired today, and not because my son, my partner, my husband, or Bob did something wrong. And it's a long process when you hear that, but it's actually that instant moment. So when you have the moment, you're thinking clearly about it, you are able to manage the level of your anger. You can drag them down to here, from here. You can manage that. And it's not going to solve the problem, but it will help you have a better relationship with other people. Same thing applies to any social relationships you have in your life. And also some things, like I say, last night, my son woke up at 2:50. So I went in to check on him and he was safe, and I stayed, and he didn't want to go back to sleep. So I spent 2 hours in his room to try to get him to sleep. He was all fine. He was all cuddly. He was like, there are a couple minutes, I just want to spank him, and I just want to tell him to go to sleep, stop talking. But I knew why I felt that way, because I was so sleepy. I was so tired, and I'm still sick. And then I'm losing my patience, and I'm losing my energy. And I feel like, why can't you just do the way I want you to do it? But of course he can't. He's only 2. And the moment I realized that, I started to become calmer and more gentle, and then I started to hug him and say, like, okay, you have bad dreams. Start to talk him through why he did that. He was eventually asleep And that was already 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had to get up at 6:30. Even my husband realized that because I was so sleep deprived that I might not have patience for everything. And you could tell he was walking on thin ice around me. He was very careful about what he said and how he do things. But and then it reminded me when I was little that I had to walk on a thin ice around my parents when they were mad because they're going to dump their anger to me if I was not careful. So a good thing, then I start to be more patient, more careful around my kid, and then my son can do whatever he wants as long as everything is reasonable. And I was able to manage everything. So we got out the house smoothly. He went to daycare. I came back. I went to my appointment. And I remember the wrong time. It was not at 10 o'clock. It was at 4 o'clock. It took me a long way to travel. And I had to come back. And then guess what? I'm doing a video now. And I don't even feel that bad because I know things happen and I can't control everything. And that's fine. And I feel like I'm getting more emotionally healthy in any kind of relationship. So that's what I want to talk about in this video. And I hope you can get some useful things out of it. Even not, just think about how you practice your listening. But anyway, stay tuned for the next episode. We'll see you soon.